In this video, we are going to demonstrate how to perform Type 1 Gauge R&R. Visit the URL qtools.zometric.com and log in with your credentials. Click on Type 1 Gauge R&R in the list of statistical analysis tools. Type 1 Gauge R&R is typically performed before a Gauge R&R study. Unlike Gauge R&R, this study evaluates the combined effects of bias and repeatability from repeated measurements of only one part. In the data pane on the left, we need to capture the data for Type 1 Gauge R&R analysis. We can enter data manually by clicking on the Edit mode at the bottom of the data pane, or we can copy and paste from Excel files or Google Sheets using Ctrl-C Ctrl-V in Windows, or Command-C Command-V in Mac. Now, in the Options pane on the right, we can see some optional and mandatory parameters. In the reference, we need to fill a measurement of the reference part. For this sample data, reference is 0.025. Tolerance is the allowable variation in measurement from a given value. Here, we are assuming tolerance as 0.0007. Percent of tolerance for calculating CG is by default taken as 20. Values from 10 to 20 are common. Study variation is the number of standard deviations we would like to consider as the variation in the study. This is by default 6, which includes 99.73% of possible measurements. We can change this if required. Enter the gauge resolution value if it is known. If provided, the software assesses whether the resolution is less than the guidance value of 5% of tolerance. In tolerance type, we need to select a parameter to continue. We can choose either upper specification limit minus lower specification limit or lower or upper specification limit only. No bias test field is already enabled. If we do not want to test for bias, we can deselect it. We can also keep information such as report title, date of study, gauge name, reporter's name and remarks. These are optional fields and we can also leave them as such. Click on the Calculate button and wait for the results to load. The Type 1 Gauge R&R charts are interactive, and we can visualize better by navigating the cursor over the results. For an in-depth understanding of Type 1 Gauge R&R and usage guidelines, refer to the help documentation or concept video.